Okay, this is Making Music with Logic Now. Logic Pro 10, Lesson 1, and we are going to approach Logic Pro with the mindset of a certified professional operator of this program. So you may bring a whole wealth of musical experience, and that's perfect. Now imagine how awesome you're going to be when you take your musical experience and you can also master the program. And if you don't have the same musical background, you can still learn the ins and outs of the program. And a lot of these skills are going to be easily applicable to other software programs. With just a few little mental changes, you're going to be able to adapt to all sorts of programs. So what are we going to learn in this lesson? Well, first of all, there's going to be 2 or 3 short lessons. And I want you to follow along even if you think you know the program pretty well. Go ahead and sit back, follow along, make some music, make sure we know all the details. We're going to make 1 minute worth of music, start to finish. That's a pretty cool way this particular program starts out. This instruction gets us going right away. We're going to learn all the names of everything in that main window of the interface. We're going to learn a little bit about navigating and zooming into the workspace. We're going to know how to move regions, copy them, loop them, trim them, all those things. Finally, we're going to finish up by mixing it down, applying some effects and plugins, and we're going to export that whole operation to an MP3 file. So you can open Logic however you like. I happen to have mine in the dock. I think you do as well. And let's say let's go ahead and go new from template. Let's close this guy, and let's make an empty project. Double click on that. Right here you're presented with the track creation window. We're going to go ahead and just make 1 audio track. Now it's always good practice in Logic to save your work. So we are going to save it right on the desktop. And if yours doesn't look quite like that, you just need to flip down the arrow and you can save it right down to the desktop. I'm just going to name it Project 1. You might want to have a more creative name, but we can worry about that a little bit later. Front and center in the program is the control bar. This is where you have some features you can turn off and on, like the metronome, the count in, soloing, tuner, cycle region. We'll come back to this here. You can customize it when you hold on to it here. This is something that we use quite a bit. This one not so much. I don't use this. This is our punch in and punch out, which we'll get into a little bit later. Recording, play, stop, and then skipping ahead and back. So that's the control bar. You also have the measure and the beats. You have tempo. You have the basic meter of the song and the key of the song. You can change what you're looking at here. If you want to just look at the time, maybe you're just reading a commercial spot and you want to nail a certain time frame, you can do that. But let's just keep it kind of at the standard issue. Now, to the left of this tracks area is the inspector. You can get that to open and close by hitting I. And I'm going to go ahead and we can follow along my mouse a little bit and the fact that I'm hitting letter I to get that to pop in and out. I'll get some of those keyboard shortcuts showing up that should help you and reinforce that stuff. So in the tracks area you're going to get a lot of the same, or rather the inspector area, you're going to get a lot of the details for the track that you have selected in this track headers area. Another thing we can flip down here, and actually you can always turn on the question mark we found on, the toolbar button you can flip down. You can control the zoom. That's kind of a thing that we might want to jump into right away. And with that track zoom, you can see a little bit more detail in the file. You can zoom in, you can trim a little bit easier. Now one thing to note as you're working your way around here is that there's a blue line that circles the area of focus. So right now we're in the workspace. We've got the track headers going down the side of the arrange window, and we've got the inspector area over here. So any keyboard shortcuts that we were to trigger will apply to this area here. For example, if I want the mixer to show up, I hit X. And that's the coolest letter in the word mixer, so that's how I remember That's the keyboard shortcut. So X will open and close that. Another area of the Final Cut, or rather the Logic Pro interface that we may be using a lot, is the Loops browser. And the letter that shows up most frequently in the Loops browser is the letter O. So when we get into the Loops area, you can, of course, search for things that may catch your attention, ideas. You know, I was looking for some digital sound effects and some computer sound effects over the weekend, kind of creating some soundscape stuff. And you can search for those things in here. You can filter by instrument. So if we want to get drums and we want moods, acoustic and distorted, we can do that as well. Now I'm going to be putting together a little bit of music. I wish I could take full credit for it, but I can't. This is some music that comes from our this particular training session, and I'm just going to kind of put it together. Whoops, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off for just a second. Oops. So if you're trying to search for something and it doesn't show up, here's our first lesson. Reset your filters. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with this fine line beat. Now when you drag and drop something over there, it's going to grab the tempo from that beat and apply that to your project. That's great if you want the tempo of that particular beat to come into your project. But if you already have a tempo that you like, well, you can double click in here. I can type in new tempo, 92, or I can click in here and I can drag, oops, sorry, not double click. I can click there once and I can drag up, or I can drag down to set the tempo. So there's a couple different ways to get in there and manipulate the tempo. So let's leave that tempo changed just a little bit. And then let's have a closer look at it. Open the, what is called, you hover your mouse, the toolbar button. So when we want to get into that, to open the track zoom, you can. And then I want to tell you about one of my favorite shortcuts, and then we will pass this on to the next chapter in this particular lesson. But one of my favorite shortcuts takes a couple of keys. Okay, so you're going to hold down Control and Option. Okay, that's Control and Option. And notice that the playhead, or rather the pointer, excuse me, turns into a zoom. Okay, you get a little magnifying glass. And so with Control Option held down, I'm going to click and hold, and I can zoom in like that. Okay, now the reason I like that shortcut is because I can take Control Option again and then just click once with the mouse, click, and that takes you right back to that zoom level that you were at. So that's a little bit about moving in and out of Logic. Now, real quick, let's just close up with a couple more hits. If I want to loop this out, there's a couple ways I could do it. I'm going to zoom in, disregard those shortcuts. I could grab hold of the upper right corner of that region and drag that over. Or if I wanted to actually not loop it but resize it, I could grab hold of the lower left, or rather the bottom right hand corner. Okay, this is both the right hand side. I'm trying to keep up with this. You got loop on the top corner and resize on the bottom corner. It's actually the bottom half, but I like to grab hold of the corners because in that way you really know what you're getting yourself into. Another quick way to loop out a particular region is to hit the L key, L, and that loops it out for as long as you want, and then you can pick the ending a little bit later. Okay, so we're going to come back with a couple more things as we continue to build this particular piece, and there's a lot of things that just happened there, so try to keep up with all of them.